All right, welcome everyone to Take Human Action. We're on episode 64 now. I'm Calvin, I'm your host, and we have a guest from down south that's here with us today. I'm just going to get right into it because we have a lot to talk about. So he is a dedicated advocate for liberty and limited government. He serves as vice chair for the Collin County Libertarian Party in Texas, and he's one of the Senate district representatives for District 8. And now he's running for chair of the Libertarian Party of Texas. So let's bring him on now. Nathan Polsky, welcome. How are you doing?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you. So, the timing is great on my end to have you on because we're at the end of election season, so we can start to talk a little bit more about what's going on in 2024. And I just got back from my first ever trip to your state last week, so I'll know at least a little bit more of what I'm talking about now. Mm-hmm. So we got some good timing there. I'm just really glad to have you on.
Thanks.
All right, so let's get started with hearing a little bit more about you. So how did you get started in the world of politics? What brought you into this crazy world?
Got me started in the world of politics. I would say COVID. COVID really kind of lit the torch. Before 2019, before 2020, I was not involved with politics at all. The most I did is I voted for president in 2016. Before that, I knew who was running, but really only who the Republican and Democrats were, because that's what the media was telling me. 2016, I saw that we had Trump and Hillary running. I said, okay, these two people are idiots. Who is my other option? I saw Gary Johnson. I was like, okay, who's Gary Johnson? Oh, he's in the Libertarian Party. Let's look up the Libertarian Party. Oh, a lot of these ideals, this is me. This tells me exactly who I am. So I started paying attention. I went and registered with the National. I don't even think I was a donating member at the time. Just put my name in just to get on the newsletter, just to find out what was going on. Voted for Joe Jorgensen in 2020. But when COVID hit and I saw what was happening to our liberties, seeing what the states were doing, what the federal government was doing, and what the cities are doing, or what they weren't doing, I initially decided to get involved and said, okay, I don't like what's going on. I decided to put my name in for running for city council within my city. And then I got involved with the Libertarian Party here. One of the things that a lot of people can critique right now is national, Texas, and a lot of other states were silent, or if they were making any noise at the beginning of COVID, it was very quiet. Either due to just not saying anything at all, hitting the wrong media platforms, and that the Libertarian Party is the party. It is the group that should have been at the front of COVID and calling everybody out on their hypocrisy, the violation of rights, and it just wasn't happening. So I got involved, and I've been involved and keep adding onto my plate every few months, every year since then.
Yeah, and I know that the system to become a state delegate, let alone a national delegate in Texas, is and just the overall organization of politics in Texas is very complicated in the eyes of anyone from just about any other state. So I know it's not an easy task to get involved there. So what is it like being involved in the county levels of politics in Texas, and what kind of hurdles you have to jump through?
So the county level's I wouldn't say it's too difficult. One of the hurdles in Texas, at least, is we have 245 or 254 counties within the state itself. We have more than twice the number of counties than any other state. Texas is, fundamentally Texas has been designed to keep power locally. So that's why we have so many counties to keep that governmental rule there. The problem with that is we have 200 plus counties, so we spread our resources very far and very thin. Looking at other states where you may have a dozen or so, I think some of the other, the second largest states, they have 100 something counties. Even then, you're talking about half the number of counties. Those counties are larger. It's easier to get more people in those counties involved, and especially some of the smaller states, you have less distance to travel. In my county alone, and the way most counties here, it's an hour to go from one side of the county to the other side of the county. So trying to find that central location in the county where the densest population is, it's rather difficult sometimes. That also being said, is a lot of our newer counties, a lot of our smaller counties population-wise, you may only have 2 or 3 libertarians in the county that are at least within the party itself. And they don't have the technology or the technical skills to build sites. They don't have the knowledge to run events. They said, I'm a libertarian. I want to get involved. I don't have a party in my county, so let's create one. And they were given basically a blessing by the state after a lengthy process to become affiliated, and then pretty much left alone. There's a little bit of communication that goes on between the state and the county level, but overall, it's every man for themselves.
That is unfortunate to hear, and I'm seeing one of your fellow Texans chime in and saying you have 254 counties. That is crazy.
Yep.
In Pennsylvania, we have, I want to say 60 something, and I thought that was a lot. But yeah, Pennsylvania is still smaller than Texas, but I don't know. Even with, let's say Pennsylvania was like a third of the size of Texas, which I don't even think is true, that would still only give you like 180 counties.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that is a large amount. That's hard to keep track of. And my friend that I was visiting the other week, he was telling me that there were 3 people in his county when he lived in like one of the major cities in Texas. And that's it's a pretty major city, and there's only 3 people. So in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, I know we have a good bit more than that. So if the counties are small, that can really spread you guys thin.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about in terms of the general political climate, what makes Texas special. There's a lot to say there, and let's start with, because we talked about a little bit in the pre-show. This had been more of a hot button topic at the beginning of the year. You had in San Antonio, you had the issue of civil, not civil asset forfeiture. I'm sorry.
It's eminent domain.
Eminent domain. Thank you. You had an eminent domain issue surrounding one of the businesses near the Alamo. So why don't you tell us about that and tell us what LP Texas did?
Sure. So I don't have the full story there, but I did go down there. LP Texas did a quarterly meeting down in San Antonio. So the night before, pretty much everybody who's on our executive committee went down to the bar and just had a good time. San Antonio, the city council down there and the state decided that they wanted to expand the visitor centers, museums, a bunch of stuff right by the Alamo. And they went through and they offered up they were using eminent domain, but they were offering up a price for all the businesses down there. And Moses Roses was one of the bars down there, and the value that they were giving him wasn't even enough to really, it just wasn't enough. And it wasn't a greed aspect. I know he took out a whole bunch of loans shortly before they had done that to upgrade his establishment, to buy some new appliances and whatnot. And the other businesses on the strip were offered considerably more money than he was offered. So he told him to basically go stuff yourself. And he wasn't going to sell. And I know there's a lot of legal battles that were going on there. They eventually did come to an agreement where he was able to settle. And they've been, I guess, doing changes since then. But it was to the point where if the state of Texas and if San Antonio was going to refuse to do the business right, do the owner right, there would probably be a bunch of libertarians in jail, chained outside the business, come and take it. And which is even funnier, right outside the Alamo, during this time period, you had some senators, you had a couple of the state officials were down there celebrating the Alamo and, come and take it and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, not a block away, they're trying to take property from somebody. So, the hypocrisy there. And these were all Republicans too. They weren't Democrats. These were all Republicans that were saying, well, we want that property for a government business, so we're going to take it from somebody. So Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats down here.
Right, exactly. Because for those who don't know, the Alamo was the centerpiece of the Texas Revolution in many ways. It's one of the quintessential battles that led to the independence of Texas from Mexico. And it's been immortalized in not just Texas culture, but American culture as well, as a heroic last stand, and all of which is true. But just like you were saying, even in the museum, you can find, like the museum right there that they did have open already, you can find flags that they used literally say, come and take it. So that's not even just something they made up. That is something that has been used since that very battle in 1836. And now they're just ignoring all that and stomping all over the very meaning of those words.
Exactly.
To just take all these businesses. And I imagine even some of the people in Texas may not have been there recently, but I was just there days ago, and I can tell you that the storefronts look just as they were in terms of like the actual buildings, the outside of it, but everything in terms of any branding related to the stores, any signs, all that's gone. And there's a giant billboard at the top of, like, center of that row of buildings that now says like visitor center coming. I don't know what it said, soon or something like that. It had like an artistic representation of the visitor center, what it's going to look like. And it took the entire floor and stretched half the length of the block almost. They're just rubbing it in everyone's faces, what they're doing now. And it's at least in part because the grounds where all those buildings are standing on would have been within or on the wall of where the Alamo was when it was complete and standing in full. And they just used that to take it all.
Yeah. It's a joke what's going on down there right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from what I've been hearing, they've been working, like they've already been doing construction in that area for years, and it's even that part that doesn't include those buildings is still not done yet. So who knows when that'll actually be done? But construction always takes forever.
It does.
Yeah, imagine if it were privatized. Well, there probably wouldn't be this eminent domain going on in the first place, but that's another conversation.
True. Also, restricting who can work.
Mm-hmm.
The border is a big issue too. For years, a lot of Texas labor, manual labor, was reliant on. They weren't even immigrants. They were just individuals from Mexico that would come over to Texas. They'd work during the summer or whatnot. Then they go home. Good luck. Nowadays, you really can't do that.
Yeah, so getting in the comments, you had a candidate, Dawn Buckingham, who ran against eminent domain. Does that ring a bell?
Dawn Buckingham is the land commissioner. I think she's the land commissioner. She's basically the one who's in charge of seizing the property.
Oh, okay. So it's the person who ran on being against eminent domain, and then they just turned around and was like, eminent domain. Why not?
Yeah, no, she got called out. I wouldn't say she was attacked, but we made sure that people who followed her on social media knew what she did. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So I'll just say one more thing about that. It's just, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that I'm not on this. Just from, it's been, the events surrounding the Alamo have been documented in multiple movies, songs, you name it. It's famous. Everything that happened there, it's comparable in Texas heritage and culture to like the Washington crossing the Delaware or the Battle of Yorktown in the Revolutionary War. Like it's, I'm sure it's people think of it very similarly down there, and yet they're capitalizing on all that to take advantage of these businesses and not even feel like they have to pay them for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Just hoping that everyone will forget about it because it's, it's what they want to do with it. And they would just want to take advantage of the fact that they're there.
If it's not on the local news, if it's not on the front page of the newspaper, most people are not aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that I'll use that as our transition then to Texas culture itself. And, not only do you have your own like founding myths, essentially, which is in part the definition of culture, having your own like foundational, not myths, but just like a foundational epic of your own. But you also have like if you go anywhere in Texas, you'll see the shape of the state is everywhere. Like on my first night there, and like it wasn't like a super expensive hotel either. It was like a relatively cheap hotel where I stayed the first night, and they even had waffle makers that were making waffles in the shape of the state of Texas. Everywhere
sounds about right.
I see like all these stores are shaped in the form of the state of Texas. Like, the name Texas is everywhere. Even most of the highways had on the highway supports on the ramps for the exits and stuff. Yep. You had the Lone Star on the side of all the supports for most of these highways I saw. And so,
if anything, Texans are proud to be Texans.
Right. So, when Bob, I was listening to Bob Murphy's podcasts on, Texas secession, and he was saying like Texas is perfect for secession. And I was thinking, I'm not so sure. New Hampshire might be better with the Free State Project and all in terms of which one's more likely. But now that I'm seeing all this, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's onto something there. So I feel like I'm getting a better sense of that now. Why don't you fill me in? Do you think the climate is at least getting more right for Texas? What are we looking at here?
Well, a lot of the polls that I've been seeing and have seen throughout the years say that the majority, and when I say majority, it's over 50%. So that 50% plus one, whatever you want to look at it, of Texans are in favor of at least voting on Texas seceding from the Union. That being said, in order to actually make that happen, we need to get it on the ballot. We had earlier this year, I think it was Brian Slayton was one of the congressmen right near me. Actually, he's in my Senate. He was in my Senate district. He had put forward a Texit item onto the legislation. It didn't make it out of committee. And trying to, the hard part right now is trying to find senators, trying to find congressmen who are willing to put that forward. The big drive right now is there's a few organizations. There's 2 or 3. The most prominent one is the Texas Nationalist Movement. That's really driving Texas right now. The way they're doing it, though, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. Their goal is to get it onto the primary ballots so that the Republicans and Democrats can vote on it in their primaries, which doesn't do anything for the state. It just shows that the party itself votes in favor of Texas. And that then lets their representatives know that that party has voted in favor of it and puts some leaning on it. Within the Libertarian Party itself, I would say we're probably split on, do we support Texas? Do we not support Texas? You've got some more, I wouldn't even call them minarchists. They're more probably classical liberals that feel that Texas needs to stay within the nation, that it should not separate. It needs to play ball. It needs to adhere to federal mandates and federal legislation, but still fight back on unconstitutional rulings. And then you've got the other half, the libertarians, that are saying, no, we need to be our own nation. We're tired of the federal government. It's overreaching. It's run by buffoons. The voting system doesn't work throughout the country. Just let us do our own thing. We've got military bases. We've got agriculture. We've got oil. We've got everything in Texas to sustain ourselves. I know you mentioned New Hampshire earlier. New Hampshire is a little itty bitty little state. So I don't know if they really have the resources to go in solo if they were to secede, and how much they would rely on import, export, or mostly import at that point for them to sustain themselves. I'm pretty confident, or fairly confident, that Texas could sustain itself if we decided to secede from the nation. I would love to see something like that, or at least get on the ballot. That could by itself garner a huge turnout to polls. We just had our polls, 2 days ago, 3 days ago for the November election. And in Texas, there's not a lot going on that election ballot. We had some state propositions that were on there. There's 14 of those. Most of the municipalities didn't do elections. They usually do those in the spring every year or every other year, so nothing really in November. I know in my county there was maybe a handful of some of the smaller cities that may have had special elections or may have had a city council member here or there. Not enough to really get turnout. So we had 5% turnout, at least in my county, for voting on bonds, voting on state propositions. It's just a bad time. But if we were to throw a Texit proposition onto a November ballot, I guarantee the turnout for that would be huge. One, you would have a ton of Republicans coming out to vote in favor of it. And you'd also have a ton of Democrats coming out to vote against it. So at least we'd have a good turnout for once. But even one of my state senator said that Texas is unconstitutional, and anybody who is in favor or supports it is a criminal and needs to be treated as a terrorist. So that's the elected representative in my district right now.
Oh, Yeah, that's lovely. You're referring to the state the state level representative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, state senator. Or no, he's
okay.
he's state house. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I certainly understand that. Mine are not great either. This is a quick aside, but there was a bill that recently went through the U.S. Congress where it contains a section of it that would basically have a government kill switch in every car that's manufactured, I believe.
Yes,
and
the 2026
there was the Massey amendment to try to kill that, and it failed because 19 Republicans switched and voted with the Democrat, and one of them was the Republican who's in my district, and he's notorious for voting so he's a Republican, but or even if he was a Democrat, still this would be terrible. But he votes with big government every single time.
Yeah, I saw when Massey was posting some of that information.
Yeah, and he claims to be not a libertarian, an independent. So it's like, okay, you're an independent minded representative because you vote for big government every time, regardless of whether it's the Republicans or Democrats doing it. Great. That's lovely.
Yeah, I saw when Massey posted his kill switch amendment. I was like, oh, I'm not ever selling my cars then. Or if I am, it's going to be at a markup because these are the ones that don't have the kill switch in them.
Yeah, I was planning on keeping mine for a while anyway, so I won't have to deal with that at least for a bit. But we'll see. Maybe it'll get changed at some other point, hopefully.
One of mine's a 14-year-old car that's on its last legs. So
yeah, you might want to go use then. All right. Well, back to the issue at hand, though. So I did notice, even while I was down there, there were some signs, vote for this ballot proposition, vote against this ballot proposition. So I did notice that was something that people seem to care enough about to put more signs up than possibly any I saw for even candidates. So what exactly is the process for getting something on the ballot? Is it all like statewide, or is there a different process for different localities? How does that work?
Yeah, so it really depends on what the ballot or what the initiative is. The state propositions were put forth through Congress, the state Congress. There's 14 of those to amend the state constitution. The signs that you probably saw regarding to those propositions were through special interest groups. And those are going to be the ones that are looking for the money. They're looking, the teacher unions, the school unions, anybody who could profit off of it. Those are the ones that have the money that were really pushing to get people out to vote in favor of their props. Now, when you get down to the county level and to the school board and to the city bonds, those show up as either a proposition or bonds. In most cases, it's going to vary from city to city or from school board to school board. I know in my city, I think if a non-city council member who wants to get something on the ballot requires something like 4,000 signatures. And we've got 110,000 people in my city. So that's a large number of people, considering that's about how many people actually go out and vote in these off years, in these elections, just to get something on the ballot itself. Now, like in my city specifically, there was a bunch of these signs that said, go and vote in favor of all these bonds. Again, special interest groups. These are the people that are going to be receiving benefits from these bonds when they pass. We just passed $150 million worth of bonds that people are like, oh yeah, it's not going to increase your taxes. Bullshit. It does increase your taxes. And we passed $600 million in bonds for the county. So people just don't know what's going on. They wait for these off-year elections that are notoriously known for having the lowest turnout to slide in these huge bonds and propositions that really affect everybody, but nobody knows about it.
Yeah, that fits. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I believe what the signs were for was the pro signs were basically saying, vote for this proposition because it'll give us like a seawall to protect us from hurricanes and bad weather, and we need this. That was shorter, but that was the gist of it. And then the against signs listed this long list of reasons, like don't vote for this, wasteful spending. They're going to keep on doing this spending for years. They're going to raise your taxes, all that stuff. So, yeah, that definitely lines up with what I was seeing. Oh, yeah, it's always to spend more money, of course. It's never to like cut anything back. All right, so just one more point on that note. So, do you think the best, if you were to pursue Texit, is a ballot initiative like that the best chance, or might there be another way to go about it?
For tech to really and truly pursue Texit, there's two things we need. One, we need somebody in Congress to put forth a bill for it, or an amendment or a proposition for it to put it on the ballot. So it's finding somebody that's either already in office or that we can kind of lean on, or that we can help champion to get elected. Getting a libertarian elected into office to push it, it's going to be very difficult to do, especially in Texas. Yes, we run candidates. Our best chance, though, is probably going to be finding a Republican who's very conservative or who's very pro-Texas and anti-federal government. I mentioned earlier that Slayton was the one that was championing it before. However, due to some, I would say, shenanigans that he had with one of his office aides, he's no longer in office. So we lost that one as one of our champions there. He also was running up to defend the guard bill through the state as well. But when he got outed, that fell flat too. So finding someone who can champion is the first thing to do. Is to get it onto the ballot at least, or into a committee so that it can be put onto a ballot for Texans to actually vote on it. Once we can do that, then it's going to be educating Texans to say, look, you need to go out, you need to vote for this, here's why you need to vote for it, and here's what we need to do. But yeah, no, the hardest part is going to be getting it onto the ballot.
Right. Well, it's good that you have that option at the least, because I know in Pennsylvania, the only place where you can even have ballot options is Philadelphia, because it has a separate home rule charter from the rest of the state. But even that, they usually just throw in woke stuff and excuses to raise your taxes. Like, should we create a bias investigation unit within the police department, or should we fund this other woke division, or should we, I don't know, spend more money on the trash service, and like small text at one paragraph later, raise your taxes by 10% or something like that.
Yeah.
They always find a way to sneak that stuff in. Sometimes, it's the safest bet in those cases just to vote no for all of those. But sometimes I'm just wondering if, we should vote yes on some of those bad propositions, just or at least the woke ones, just so that, the government is investigating itself and goes, more chaotic and less efficient. I don't know. Maybe that's one route you could take.
Hey, I'm okay if the government stalemates and doesn't do anything.
Right now, all the propositions I've seen are terrible. So
we had a good one that raised our property tax exemption to $100,000. So that was a good one to pass.
Okay, well, that's good at least. The ones I've seen are terrible, so I'm glad you're able to take advantage of it more down there. At least there's an opening to do that. So I wanted to lead with all this, like what makes Texas special, like the culture and history of the state, and like some of the unique opportunities you have to transition to the current state of the party, at least the Libertarian Party in Texas, because it is very far from all of those things we just mentioned in terms of what they value. Near as I can tell, it's very different from the culture of the Mises Caucus and most of the people in it. In fact, when I went to the website recently for the state party, the first thing I saw was a prominent fundraiser being featured that, let's just say, if it was a movie, would be rated R or worse, and it costs several $100s, and it's apparently the main fundraiser for the year. So why don't you tell us what's going on with Texas, at least the current state of the party there?
Yeah, so I could probably spend several hours talking about the current state of the party. To sum it up the best way that I can is that I don't see from a leadership perspective within the current party a goal. I don't see here's what we're planning on doing in 2024. I don't see here's what our goal is as a party, and here's what everything we're doing is driving, other than maintaining ballot access. That's like the big key is like, oh, we got to maintain ballot access. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. What are we doing? What are we doing as a party? The event that we have going on this weekend, it's a burlesque show. Initially, it didn't have an age restriction on it, but after some feedback, they put an 18 plus on it at least. So we're thankful for that. So I know at least from the Mises Caucus, we had a lot of concerns with the messaging that the event, burlesque show. Sure, why not? We'll do the burlesque show for whatever reason. But what the message was for promoting it, what the goal from the events department itself to promote it, we did not feel that was okay. Sorry, reading the chats, not supposed to do that. So, we said, okay, one, it's really expensive. It's the most expensive event that I've seen in the past couple of years to get out to go and see. I know I can't afford that. Two, like I said, the messaging. Read the room for the current state. We're facing potential World War III with the Middle East, with Ukraine, with all that stuff going on right now. We've got a crisis at the border. We've got people dying of drug overdoses, but a burlesque show is what we need to promote liberty. That's not probably the best use of time. So, we came back and said, look, we would like to offer up, and this is, the Mises Caucus. We went directly to LP Texas and said we'd love to offer up an event the night before. We'd love to show a movie, to get a donation drive for a rescue group. Just do stuff, for what we felt was the actual issue. And initially the discussion went really well. And then we found out that the state party had booked something else at the same time, that we were already planning on stuff. And then I said, okay, well, can you at least promote our stuff? And they said, yes. And now they say no. So, so we're promoting an event. We've got an event this Friday, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Sound of Freedom. We're raising donations for a rescue group. We've already hit $1,000 for that. And this was planned in less than a month time, whereas the current event for the state party has been planned since February. So they've had 10 months to plan it. I don't know what the ROI on the event is. I know a lot of people canceled their donations to the state party because of the event that the state decided to go with. So even if they make some profit on it, they're losing out on monthly donors, quarterly donors, big donors because of the event they decided to run. one of my goals as chair is to not do those types of events. Make sure that we focus on the events that everybody can get behind. Sure, you may have one or two people that may not be okay with an event, but just because something is in our platform, either the national platform, the state platform, county platform, whatever, that says, yeah, we don't think people should be criminalized for this, doesn't mean we have to fully back behind, support something. It just means just leave them alone. So I think if we focus on what really matters, what's really going on with the state right now, we can get better events, we can get more return on our investments, and we can pull in a lot more donors.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there had been that much backlash from all this. Wow. Mm-hmm. So how long has the event been live, and when is it happening?
So the event's happening this Saturday. It's been live. I can't remember exactly when they put the tickets live, but they announced it. The first time they announced it to the rest of the state executive committee was at the last quarterly meeting. So that would have been in August. And that was in El Paso, where we barely had quorum because it was so far. I mean, for most of our events, the furthest one that I had been to prior to that was over in Abilene, and that was a 4.5 hour drive for pretty much everybody. El Paso, double that. And so you had a bunch of people that just said, that's too far. I'm not going to fly out there for that. I'm not going to drive out there for that. So they barely had enough for quorum. They had, I think, 2 or 3 over the bare minimum. You could have had 4 people stand up and walk out, and they no longer have quorum and can no longer conduct business at that point. But that's when they announced what the event was going to be, which, like I say, so that was in August. So they had 6 months that they'd already been planning it. They knew where they were going to put it. They already had all the information for it. They wouldn't even release the location for it until pretty much when the tickets went on sale, which I think was maybe a month and a half ago. Like I said, I'd have to go and check the date on that. So for anybody else who wanted to try and plan an event around that, you had very little time to do so. So at least the Mises Caucus, I wouldn't say we struggled, but we had to kind of hit the road running there to say, okay, well, where's it located? All right, what's around there? What can we do? We've got less than 2 months to fully plan an event and try and work with the state to advertise it, to support something that is in line with the same type of theme that they were going for. But we wanted to go from the other avenue, whereas the state was pushing a sex work is work theme. They changed the name of it to somewhat please some people that were upset with that theme. We came back and said that's it's not true. That kind of ignores the whole trafficking aspect of it. So why can't we promote the trafficking aspect and bring to light the trafficking aspect that's going on here and the slavery that's going on here? And it just kind of fell on deaf ears. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, those sound like plays very similar to what the Pennsylvania Old Guard did in so many ways, like having meetings in inconvenient places, even like scheduling the convention where we ended up having our state takeover in about the most inconvenient place possible. Like it would have been hard to choose a town that would have been harder for me to get to. And there's a lot of other libertarians that live around me. So, it's near Philadelphia. So it wouldn't be just me. Like a lot of libertarians in our area would have had a hard time getting up there. So I totally get that part. That's just insane. But I'm glad that you're organizing your own events. Sounds like you're making some good progress there. So just to be clear, though, is this, said you're organizing this with the state party, or is this a caucus event that you're doing, or how is that working?
So the event that we're doing tomorrow night is a caucus event. Originally, when I reached out to the events department at our last quarterly meeting, I said, when they announced that they were going to be doing a burlesque show on the night following the next quarterly meeting, which is this Saturday, I had personally reached out and said, cool. Can we do something the night before? The caucus would love to offer up a free event of some sort to kind of bridge that trafficking, sex work type, avenue. Would love to offer it up to and have people come to it, look for donations and stuff like that. We didn't have, this was the first we had heard of it, so we didn't really have any information. We had no plan, no strategy at the time. It was just here's a spitball thing. And the feedback I got was, sure, that sounds great. So that's what we started doing. And then once we had more of an idea lined up of here's what we're going to do, or here's what we're looking to do, reached back out and said, here's what we're looking to do. We would love to do it at the hotel that the meeting's at. It really depended on cost, though. If not, then it would probably be somewhere nearby, 10, maybe 15 minutes at most away. And they said, okay. Well, once I gave them the information, said, well, we got a happy hour scheduled that time now. I said, okay. Well, what happened to this whole conversation that we had where we were going to be able to offer up something for free to the party? So yeah, they did push the happy hour that they had scheduled up an hour, because I had said, maybe, I asked if they could schedule a little bit sooner so that we didn't overlap as much, because we knew that showing a movie on a Friday night, you can't do it too early because people are still working. So it would have to be later, and the latest we could get it was 7:00. I tried getting something later than that, but the theaters, they didn't want to show anything like that too late. So I said, all right, well, here's the time. I asked, can we bring a flyer or standee, one of those little standees you can put on the tables to advertise it? Can you share it out? No, they didn't want to anymore. They wanted to put their own stuff out so they could get donations and not direct anybody to it. So I said, okay, it's our event. And then I just saw that the Classical Liberal Caucus is also doing an event Friday night. But when they advertised it, they did not advertise it as a caucus event. They advertised it as just a bunch of individuals getting together, which then turns out to be their caucus event that they completely ignored when advertising it to the state.
Interesting. Yeah, sounds like you have some crazy dynamics with that. So you said this was going to be the screening of The Sound of Freedom?
Yes. It's
okay.
Free screening of The Sound of Freedom. So the caucus, we paid for the rental for the whole thing. So anybody who wants to go and see it, it's absolutely 100% free, at least to see the movie. It's at the Alamo Draft House in Dallas. So if you want to buy drinks, if you want to buy food, that's on you. But if you want to come and show up and just sit and watch the movie, you haven't seen it before, or you have and you want to see it again, no cost to you.
Yeah. So do you have a link for the event in case anyone's on here doesn't know about it and wants to go if they're in the area?
Yes, and I'm sure one of the many people in Texas in the chat can post it.
Yes, we do have a number of them. So thank you to all of you that have been providing useful information in the chat as we've been going along. Yeah, I'll just say one thing about the movies. When I was in college, I was working with the College Libertarian group, and one of the more successful events in terms of attendance that we had was a screening of Doctor Strangelove. So never underestimate the power of movies to bring people in, like people who were never involved in the group before, or I would even necessarily describe as libertarian. I still got to come out. We had like 4 times our normal attendance, and it was awesome. So it's definitely an underutilized tool that our groups could be doing to bring some people in the door.
Yep.
All right. So before we get to the end here, I want to give you some time to talk about what you're doing now with your chair run and your vision and, what a party under Nathan Polsky would look like as opposed to what we've been describing so far. So lay it down for us.
Sure. So for my chair run, I had an event out in Houston last month. I'll be heading down to Travis County, which is Austin area, this upcoming Monday, right after our select meeting. I've reached out to the chairs down in that area to say, hey, come on out. I'm attending their monthly meeting. Would love to take the opportunity to speak with people. As state chair, my goal is to focus on the elections that we have the best chance at winning. And those are our local elections, school boards, city council, some county elections as well. Libertarians have shown time and time again that those are the best places they have nonpartisan races, some smaller partisan races as well. And with Texas as being as big as it is, and the resources either spread too far, or like I said, our counties just not having those resources, is to give resources to these counties, give resources to these candidates, offering up hosting of websites, getting their websites actually stood up, helping with candidate training, county training. We have some training material. It's not regular. It's not something that right now a new county may come on board and they have absolutely no idea what to do. So giving them the tools they need to succeed, working with individual organizations, like I mentioned earlier, the Texas Nationals movement, working with them. I know there's a lot of kickback that our party has right now internally because, one, they say, well, it says nationalist in the name, or two, because they're focused on getting ballot stuff for the Republicans and the Democrats. Well, we can still do a single item coalition, just talk about Texas. I'm working on the Defend the Guard right now. I'm probably going to get some kickback from that too. Single item coalitions, if we have the Republican Party or if the Democratic Party, if they have something they want to push, school choice, for example, let's work with them on it. Don't be so whiny. Don't be so Puritan libertarian, where you refuse to work with an organization, you refuse to work with another party solely because of the name, solely because of who they associate with. If it's going to promote liberty, then we need to be working with them. We're not the biggest kid on the block. We're not even the second biggest kid on the block. So we need to leverage those tools that we have that are available to us. So between those two things, and then in addition to that, fixing some of our staff structure and autonomy. A lot of what goes on within the party right now has to run through the chair before anything gets done. You have an idea, got to run it up through the chair. We have people that are in departments. They were hired on. They went through interview processes to get into a volunteer position. If they can be trusted to be in that position, then let them do their job. The chair needs to be focused on dealing with the media, dealing with other political organizations, dealing with any of the law, any legal stuff going on. and then kind of giving that vision to the party. We have an executive director who's in charge of managing all these departments. They're the one that all these departments need to go up to. Let him do his job. Let the departments do their job. If there's any questions, they can raise it up the flagpole. But like as an example, I'm on the political, or I'm in the political action department as a coalitions liaison, and it's taken me almost 2 months just to get something posted to our executive committee for review to form a new coalition. And that's because of all the red tape I had to go through just to get it posted. If with a proper structure, talk to my director, get it posted later that week. But that's not how we're currently set up as a party. So I think a lot of that needs to get fixed, needs to get changed to streamline processes. We don't have any project management tools within the party itself. It needs to be run, I think, a little bit more like a business. You've got so many different departments going right now that no one really knows what's going on with the other departments other than maybe the executive director, maybe the chair. I have no idea what's going on in another department right now. I have no way of finding out unless I go and reach out to them. A simple project management tool. It can be free. It can be inexpensive, and it can help guide the different departments, the directors, the volunteers, the chair and the executive director into the right direction to know how much work an individual has on their plate. Do we have individuals that aren't doing anything? Are they just taking up a seat as a volunteer position? Do we have volunteers that have so much work it should be a full-time job? This is stuff that I just don't think we have right now, and it needs to be implemented.
Yeah, it sounds like from everything you've said, it's like you said at the beginning, they're not focusing on the areas that are most pressing, and everything that you are trying to do is just getting throttled in bureaucracy. Like on my end, and this is just my personal area of focus right now. But most of the projects I'm working on can in some way be tied to preventing a World War III. There's a fairly, it's hard to, have much control over that, but, still it's like working towards a general direction. And here, I don't know if you can even really say they're focusing on like state politics or important national politics. That seems like they're focusing on niche issues where there is a focus at all outside of ballot access. And, people who are bringing ideas to the board are just, like you said, getting throttled. So it's definitely not a great situation right now. And since we did get a question on this, I'll bring this up too. How many libertarians ran in for office in Texas this year? Do you know?
This year, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I want to say several dozen when you consider local municipality, school board. Actually, I don't know if anybody ran for school board. We had some municipality runs. We had some state senates, state Congress. We had people run for that. U.S. congressional district. This November, I don't think we had anybody. The way most of our bylaws sit is to receive a nomination to be put on the ballot as a libertarian, you have to be nominated and elected through convention, which only happens every 2 years. So for these off-year elections, it's rather difficult. A lot of people lose interest. So it's just something that it's hard and it's a struggle.
Yeah, that's asinine. I can't even imagine that, because I assumed it was like this in most states, but in Pennsylvania, it's basically fully decentralized to the point that the counties are the only ones nominating local candidates, unless there is no county affiliate or it's multiple counties. But even in the case of multiple counties, it's just up to the counties where the district lies, not the state board. So
right,
fact,
and that's how it is.
2 years in advance or something like that.
I mean, that's how it is here as well. So like, let's say we have a county position, commissioner or whomever up for election. The county is the one who's in charge of nominating and electing them, but it's done during convention. And the state party, so in Texas, third parties only run through convention. That's our nominating process, is through convention. The Republicans and Democrats go through primaries, which they do every year. Our conventions are only every 2 years. And so for us, unless I'll have to check with the state, with the state party, with the Secretary of State, and within our own bylaws, how can we elect some of these people or nominate these people in off years when we don't have a convention? For us to do a convention is even difficult. You talk to people in other states, and Texas is the hardest state for a third party to participate in. We have a precinct convention that you must go to first. That actually registers you with the party. There's no online registration. You don't show up anywhere. You have to go to a precinct convention, which takes place on a Tuesday following the primaries. So if you participate in the primaries, you're no longer eligible to participate in the precinct convention. You go to the precinct convention, you're affiliated with the party at that point. You're registered as Libertarian. You then automatically become a delegate to go to the county convention, which is the following Saturday. You then must go to the county convention. And at that point, if you're running for a county position or a state position that's wholly contained within the county, you can get nominated and elected. If you then are running for something else, you have to go to the district convention. And then if you're running for a statewide position, you have to go to the state convention. So there's potentially 4 conventions you have to go to in order to run for a specific office in Texas as a third party. So they really don't make it easy. It's just something we're having to fight every year.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a conversation worth having, like just with the state officials, to see if there's any other way you can do it. I don't know if you can change your bylaws and have an off-year convention, if that's a possibility, but there's got to be something you can do.
Who knows? The state legislature right now, and for the past 4 years, has been trying to kick libertarians off the ballot. They've been trying to turn Libertarian Party into a primary party. They're doing everything they can to prevent us from participating.
Right.
All the way down to just straight up lying on the Senate floor. So, and there's nothing we can do about that. Once they're in front of the Senate and it's no longer public speaking, they can lie. And as long as nobody else counters what they're saying, then that's what the rest of the senators, the congressmen, believe.
Well, that's great.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think we covered a lot of ground. We focused on what makes Texas special, and then the current state of the party, where it's focusing, and then where you would be focusing and what your plans are. So I think we definitely talked about a lot of important topics. I think people are starting to get an idea how difficult things are for you right now over there. But, I, for one, am glad that you and everybody else who's behind you is stepping up and trying to make a change over there, because it sounds like it's very much needed within the party. And then there's a lot of ways you can go from there. So I'm glad to hear you've got all that going on. So how can people follow you and support you?
So you can follow me on Twitter, or Twix, I think is what a lot of people are calling it now, just Nate the ANCAP. I've got a website, nathanforliberty.com. You can also help donate there. That's going to help me get out to these different places in Texas. Before the convention next year, I plan on getting to as many counties as I can. And as we discussed, Texas is a big state. So There are some travel expenses for that, just to actually make it to different places and locations. Follow me on Twitter, reshare my content, spread the word. And then the biggest thing is, if you are in Texas, is participate. Get out to your county, get involved with your county, become a delegate to the state convention in 2024. That's going to be in Corpus Christi. So middle of April, the water is going to be mid 70 degrees. Somewhat maybe t-shirt and short weather. So, it's a little mini vacation for people and families out there. So take the opportunity, get involved, get out there, vote for me in April, and then just look forward to all the good stuff that's going to happen.
Yeah, I was just there, and the weather was absolutely gorgeous. It was definitely short and t-shirts weather, beautiful palm trees, beautiful beaches. The food was amazing. So Texas people, you have no excuse. If you're not able to make it down there to the gorgeous city and enjoy everything that they have, then I'm sure you can too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you very much again, Nate, for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, stick around for a minute and I'll close it out. All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming on and listening. Special thanks to the Texas people for chiming into the live chat tonight. So don't forget to like and share this. And we'll definitely be back at least by the week of Thanksgiving. We have a special Thanksgiving episode planned. We're going to be bringing Jacob back on and James Jenneman. We're going to be talking about the first settlers of America seeking religious freedom, the Pilgrims, the Amish, Mennonites, and some of the French Protestants, also known as the Huguenots. And we're going to compare and contrast them. But, there's definitely some things you can say about the Pilgrims in New England and how strict they were in terms of their lifestyle and beliefs. But one thing you can say about all of those groups is that they were seeking liberty, seeking religious freedom in the New World in their own way. So we're going to be highlighting those stories. So definitely tune in for that. So until then, don't forget to take human action. Bye.